Welcome to Manny's TV Talk, where we will talk about all of our favorite reality TV shows and news surrounding them. Grab a snack, a drink, and get comfortable because this starts now.
Hey you guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about the Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion for season 13. This is part 1 of the reunion, you guys. We finally made it. It's been a while since I've actually really looked forward to a New Jersey reunion. This was one of those reunions that I really wanted to see. So we finally made it. We got the first part. So we begin with all the ladies making their way onto the set. They all looked great, I'll give them that. If I had to pick who looked the best, I would say maybe Teresa and Dolores were just stunning. But overall, they all looked amazing. As they are about to begin the reunion, Giudice calls Teresa because he has a question about Bill Aydin's services. That was kind of funny. So after that, they officially begin the reunion. You know, same old Andy asking everybody how they are and just saying hi to them. This is also Danielle and Rachel's first reunion. So then Teresa tells Andy that she's very nervous for this reunion. Like, he even touches her heart and it's beating super fast. So Andy's first question is very simple to both Teresa and Melissa. What is their outcome, or what is their goal that they're trying to get at the end of this? And they both agree that they want to close the chapter, but Melissa adds that she wants some of the truth to come out as well. Then Andy asks a light question to Teresa. He says, how has life changed since getting married? And I'm sure he was looking for something silly, like a silly answer, maybe to the effect of he's dirty around the house or something like that. But she went straight into it and said, well, the hardest part has been my family and them trying to hurt Louis. And then Melissa's confused and she's like, how are we trying to hurt Louis? And they bicker a bit. But Andy says, whoa, we're not there yet. And it's funny because Teresa says, yeah, you know what? Let's be like Beverly Hills and not interrupt each other. But Melissa says, yeah, well, you're not definitely Beverly Hills, which is kind of true. I mean, Teresa loves to interrupt. So for her to say that was kind of funny. And then the next topic is, why was Dina not a bridesmaid? Like, she was, but then she dropped out. And according to Teresa, she didn't want to be on camera, which Andy's not really buying it because he says that she could have just not signed the little waiver to be on camera. And then they begin to ask, why didn't Teresa invite Melissa's mother to the wedding? Which I've said I don't really think she had to be honest. I mean, is it cordial? Sure, but I don't think she was obligated to do so. But then we get something very juicy. So Melissa basically says that Louis is very hungry for fame and that he was actually trying to get with Alexia from Real Housewives of Miami. That is crazy to me because everybody compares Alexia and Teresa. But even though that happens, I mean, for them to say that, I don't know if it's true. Like, I kind of believe it. You know what I'm saying? But as they're arguing, Teresa says that she can't wait for this to be over so that she doesn't have to see Melissa anymore. And Melissa says, what do you mean? Like, where are you going? And Teresa says, you're leaving. That left me shocked because even Andy was shocked because for a housewife to basically try and fire another one on the reunion, it's crazy. I don't recall any other housewife ever telling another one, you're leaving after this season. I will say it'll be very funny if Teresa doesn't come back because Andy did mention that they're still trying to figure out who's going to leave and who's going to stay between Melissa and Teresa. Because Andy does ask, so like, are you cutting her off of your life? And Teresa says, oh, for sure. Like, whatever happens, she's not going to be in my life anymore. Then they talk about the wedding briefly, because y'all remember that Marge was crying at the wedding. Marge says that it was genuine, that she was really happy for Teresa, which I believe, and I think Teresa believes it as well. But Margaret says that things changed once she saw the finale and the Louis with the private investigator, but Andy pins it for now because they're going to come back to that as well. Switching gears a little bit to something more positive, Dolores and Pauley, which we all love. Dolores seems very happy with him, but she admits that this is a real serious relationship. So there can no longer be two men that are number one in her life like it used to be with Frank. This is a very different dynamic. So Pauley is very different than David, she says, who, by the way, David is still living with Frank. I will never understand that situation. But Pauley is not legally divorced, you guys. He has been separated 14 years from his wife. And Dolores says, well, maybe he didn't think he would ever fall in love again. I think that's a little bit of a problem, so I hope we can get that sorted out. We've known that Pauley's not divorced because Margaret spilled it on the after show. But then we switch over to talk about Danielle. They go over her storyline this season. They see some of those clips. I'm not a big fan of Danielle, but I do admit that she has made a pretty big mark considering this is her first season. They focus a lot on the brother problem. She hasn't spoken to him in years, but she's going to be seeing him the day after the reunion because they're going to go to a funeral. But things are still bad. And, she says that she sent him a gift to their newborn, but they returned it. And that it's really ironic because the brother's favorite show was Real Housewives of New Jersey. So for her to be on there is crazy. And then they ask Margaret if she thinks that it was harsh when she said that little comment to Danielle in Ireland. If y'all remember, that's when she said, you're always going to have problems in your life, like with your brother, because Danielle was saying something about you forgive, but you don't forget, something like that. And Margaret says that, yeah, it was harsh, but it was just in the heat of the moment. Then they ask Melissa about Danielle, and she says that she was genuinely becoming friends with her, but obviously things just got so messy towards the finale. And then Teresa comes out of left field and says to Melissa that she only wanted to be friends with Danielle because of a storyline. But furthermore, Danielle also blames them for bullying them for her clothes, this and that. And Margaret says, you know what, at the end of the day, you had a good first season and you got a lot of endorsements, which sent Jennifer Aydin through the roof. It was hilarious. But they asked Danielle also, why did she cry so much? Which I said that also because she comes across as really tough, but a lot of the time she would cry and leave. But she says that it was just a lot of stuff. And I get it. It was her first season. Maybe she just wasn't ready for it. And then they talk about that Arsenal stuff. After they talk about it a little bit, some of them think that Rachel exaggerated the comments. I think it was a dumb argument. But Rachel and Danielle start going in on each other. And they're calling each other bees and a-holes and insecure. I had thought they made up at the finale, but I guess they didn't. But then Dolores says to both of them that they just need to drop it because it's so small, it's so dumb. And after they talk about it a little bit, they sort of let it go again. So that was some good resolution. But moving on, Melissa has a new house. They talk about that. The Fudas did the tiles. It looks really nice from the pictures that they showed. And then they ask Teresa, why would she shame Antonia when they were at that car? And Teresa says that she was just simply answering a question made by Rachel. And now Teresa is claiming that Rachel did that as a setup question, which of course Rachel denies it. So they also talk about the interactions that the kids have been having with this situation, which I personally don't like. I don't like seeing the kids being involved in this mess. Like I said, I know Gia is an adult technically, but when it comes to your parents and their brothers, I just think it's things that you just don't get involved into. And they do argue about this because Melissa feels like Teresa makes the kids say bad things about them on the show. It's just a mess, But Melissa also says, my kids have never said a single word on Teresa, and they never will. But then Teresa brings up that infamous comment that Joe and Melissa made on their podcast where they said that they put food on their tables or something like that. So Melissa says, Joe took them to college. He did this, he did that. And then Teresa says, well, Joe only visited me in jail one time. But then Melissa says, well, that's because he was not on the list until they were filming that special. That's when he made the list. So it's just so messy, you guys. So much back and forth. And then after a commercial, they talk about the comment that Margaret said about Melissa being able to go with a ball player. Melissa thinks that it was just funny, but Margaret explains it in a different way than how it was brought. Because if y'all remember, Jennifer brought it into the show, making it sound like Margaret was encouraging Melissa to cheat. And Margaret says that just was not the case. It was an inside joke for them because they always call Melissa J-Lo. And since J-Lo at the time was dating A-Rod, Margaret said, oh, Melissa, if Jennifer can have A-Rod, then you can have any ball player. That's what they're saying. I don't know. But they also talk about Jennifer, who seems to be friends with Laura, the infamous ex-best friend, which I think is like low-key to get under Margaret's skin. And Andy says, if we're being honest, Margaret did try to get Laura into the show. So it just makes no sense. Like, don't you think that if she was best friends with Margaret and then enemies with Margaret now, wouldn't she want to be on the show? So then Teresa says, that's exactly what y'all did with my sister-in-law, Melissa. But then Andy, he's kind of like hesitant to really address how Melissa was brought onto the show. So he says, she was not brought into the show because she was your enemy. She was brought in because she was cute, she was interesting, she had a interesting husband, but it was not because she was your enemy. And Teresa then starts to say, well, she's had no storylines, and then she starts to list all the storylines that she has had, which, if we're being honest, it's true. Teresa has had a lot of storylines, with going to prison, the parents, everything. And there's just a lot of blabber going on. And then Teresa says very loud, everyone is going to hear this because after this, I'm done seeing your face. Talking to Melissa. So Teresa starts going off and say a lot of information that she apparently has gotten from Jacqueline Lorita. And then, as the reunion part 1 is about to end, Teresa drops a major bomb and says that she thinks Melissa put her in jail. I mean, you can't come back from that. That was such an explosive comment, and that is where they ended the first part. Of course, that was the best way to end it, I think, because it's going to make us want to watch next week. So yeah, like I said, this was the reunion that I was really looking forward to. I want to see what's going to happen. It looks like things are going to get very, very messy next week as well. A lot of the ladies are going to blame Louis for doing things that are very bad, so we're going to see that play out. Because, by the way, when Margaret came out, when they were all sitting at the beginning, she came with one of those yellow folders like Lisa Rinna did, but I think this time it will actually make it onto the show. So I can't wait for that, you guys. But you guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Whose side are you on, dare I say, Teresa or Melissa? And what were your overall opinions of this reunion? I thought it was pretty good, but you guys let me know your comments. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. You'll have a great one. Bye.